Welcome everybody. My name is Duke and this is my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about breaking the chains that bind us. You could say we all have a unique opportunity and we all have this short time that we're on this stage called life. There's only two ways out of this human existence. A, you get sick and die, or B, you get in an accident before you get sick and die. Dying of old age, that's the same as getting sick and dying. There's no way out of those two things, no matter what lifestyle choices you make. There's no way out of those two things. And it happens usually before you're 90 years old. Just about everyone dies before they're 90. There are exceptions. There are people that live to 100, but not much long after. Just about every single person dies before they're 90. So you could say that we have this short amount of time here where we have a choice. We can spend it in dreamland. We can spend it completely asleep at the wheel, so to speak, believing in the lie that we're a race, that we live in a country, in a state, which all those things are made up by the human ego. We can believe in a story of our ancestors and our particular genetic line or race. But it's all a fantasy. It's all not real. It's all made up by the human ego because we are not a body. When we identify with a body, we're in a fallen ego dream state. And you could say there's only two purposes in life: to stay asleep and dreaming, or to take the higher path. The higher path is the path to becoming fully conscious, fully awake, to take total responsibility for your mind, emotions, and choices. So we have this short amount of time on this stage, and you could say all of us have been chosen, but few choose to make the choice to a higher purpose. The chains that bind us, the chain, racial identity is a big chain, and you can see it reflected in our collective media and news. Racial identity is actually a complete illusion, because who we really are is consciousness. The life behind every set of eyes and ears is actually life itself. It's not tied to a bodily identity. So if you put a body on an operating table and you dissected it, where would the self be? Most people would say the brain. How many pieces could you remove and there would still be a self? How much of the brain could you remove and there'd still be a sense of self? And would we be able to locate you somewhere in the brain? You know, the great question, who am I? You know, who is it that asks that question? Who is it that observes the body? There's anybody who does research and dives into this comes to find that we're not a body. That's pretty clear. That mainstream science teaches that consciousness is generated by the brain, but that is one of the biggest fallacies that there is. It's like saying the brain came along and then consciousness came along. It's like, then, you know, who or what conceived or designed a brain? These things should be pretty obvious, but they're obviously not. Most people don't even think about the very most basic things. We're just caught in a dream state. We're just thinking about our next piece of food, you know, our next clothing. We're thinking about who to blame our suffering on. That's one of the biggest chains, is thinking that you're being unfairly treated. That is one of the biggest chains that bind us. If you turn on the news at any given point, you'll see that it's always about who's guilty. That's always the theme, is who's guilty, who's responsible for the suffering. That's always the underlying theme, because that's how the ego mind thrives. The ego mind thrives on seeing someone to blame. Whose fault is it? When you break through the ego, you realize that there's only one life, that we're all, you could say, we're all many minds that make up one mind, and that this is a collective dream state. And because we say, well, if I'm all one mind and I'm dreaming, then why can't I change the physical laws of the universe? And it's because this is a collective dream state where we all our minds that are really one mind, we reinforce this illusionary reality with illusionary laws. So it seems we're bound by our own mind's power of dreaming. All these illusionary laws are here to prove a fantasy that we're a separated individual. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on that. So it's looking at the idea of why don't we see each other for who we really are? Why do we see each other for a race, for an economic class? Why do we see separate interests, that we have separate interests from other people? We don't see everyone as our brother and sister, nor do we really want to. It's human nature for us to want to have our own autonomous life here. You could say that's what this whole world is about. Is the world is the idea that we could be a separated individual, that we could have our own fantasy and create our own reality, kind of like a video game, the ultimate game. And one of the key ingredients in pulling off this illusion of individuality, of seeing each other as bodies rather than seeing each other as eternal consciousness. If we seen each other as eternal consciousness, we'd all just walk around and there'd be no strangers, and it would be, most of the businesses wouldn't exist, most of the entertainment wouldn't exist. It'd just be a whole different ball game. We'd probably just float right off the planet in ecstasy. So we have to see one of the key ingredients here is, or should I say, one of the chains that bind us is seeing ourselves as unfairly treated. And this comes across in so many different ways. You can just turn on the news and the news is just screaming how someone's been unfairly treated. You could say that secretly, unconsciously, we want to see ourselves as unfairly treated, as a race, as a nation, as, maybe even in our family or in school, at the job. It's everywhere. Everybody is feeling like somebody treated them unfairly. You'll see it in so many different ways. And the reason is people, as egos, we secretly want to see ourselves that way. We would never admit that, but it's one of the key ingredients that makes this reality go around, you might say. So to take responsibility for your own mind, you have to see that when you see something negative in another person, you have to see that it's coming from your own mind. Even though that you may not be responsible for the behavior of what that body is doing, you are responsible for how you react. So it's up to us to own our feelings and emotions on how we react to other people. And it's mostly a silent practice we do to ourselves. So the whole idea is that inner peace is no blame. There's nobody to blame. So you can search your mind for all the places that you hold on to anger, malice, blame, and realize whenever that comes up, to realize that it's coming from you. It's not coming from anywhere else. That we want to see ourselves that way to keep ourselves in this unconscious state. And also, Another thing to be aware of is you can search your mind and look at all the places that you take sides. Anywhere you take sides, and in the world, it's only natural to. There are causes as well where, by every there's causes that you could say are righteous causes where bad people do bad things, and people need to intervene and make light of that situation. That's not what I'm saying is to stop doing that. It's to realize that to be free inside, you're not attached to what's going on around you in the world. In a sense, behaviorally you can be. Like, for example, if you were in a war, if you found yourself in a war, and you were a soldier, you could become, even though you're taking part in the war, you could still forgive the people that you're fighting. And you could know that beyond this ego game, that we're all the same. You probably wouldn't be a soldier for much longer after that, if you started practicing higher consciousness. Yet, what I'm getting at is no matter where you find yourself in life or what position, you can begin to experience a state of higher consciousness where you start to become above the battleground. So getting above the battleground is the whole idea with higher consciousness, is that you're observing your own mind, you're observing the things around you, but it's like you're a third-party observer. You're witnessing your emotions as you get angry, as you take sides, as you play the ego game, just like everyone else. But you're developing higher consciousness, where you're actually the silent witness. So I think I'm going to end on that note. Getting up to about that 10-minute mark. Stay above the battleground. Break free from the chains of racial identity, of taking sides, of seeing the temptation to see ourselves as unfairly treated. Those are the key takeaways from this video. And as I will elaborate more as videos go on those concepts and more. Just got to stay motivated, keep making the videos and getting them out there. Thanks for watching. And remember to subscribe if you like the content and hit that bell so you get notified when I make new videos. I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.